Hmm.
Good evening, Courtney.
Hi, how are you?
All right, how are you this afternoon?
I'm not feeling that well, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I was just sick too. I'm not happy about it. Oh wait, I meant to pin you and not spotlight you. Excuse me. I'm unspotlighting you.
Okay, I don't need to
I
be
think we
spotlighted.
I pin you. Let's see, pin. And then let me pin Marilyn. Add pin. Hi, Marilyn.
Is she muted? Marilyn, are you
Marilyn, you
muted?
muted.
I said I'm in California. It's only 4 o'clock here.
Oh,
Well,
like you got the whole night ahead of you.
I do.
I'm having trouble getting on to like Octo. I'm trying to print out the agenda and it says service unavailable. Is anyone else having issues?
Um, I thought on my here.
See if it says service unavailable every time I try to print it.
I can get in mine.
Like I'm in the email, but I can't print, I can't get on anything that's well, I'm just gonna have to have it up on my other screen. So if I look at my other screen, everybody, not playing video games, but maybe I should be. I guess I can pin my own self.
I could forward the agenda that we approved to your email.
Yeah, I have it up on the screen. It was just like I try to print it so I can
Oh, okay.
I can you know, doodle on it, make my notes.
Oh,
Alas. Because I have like,
I have to say Rachel does a really good job of giving our minutes.
yes, agree. I need to make you guys are you guys a co-host so that you can let people in here?
if you want us to, I can,
Okay.
we can do
So
that.
I need to make you the co-host. Hold on a second. I'm only because I'm dithering around here a little bit trying to get my notes up. Make co-host. Um, uh-oh, it's 6:56. Where are the people?
I don't know. They should be coming.
Shoot. Wish I was better at this. Hi, everybody. Hello, people who are here.
Oh, we got someone waiting. There you go. Courtney, I'm gonna have an interesting treasurer's report this evening.
Oh, God.
What?
I was going to try and go to a Shiva when this is over. That makes me feel like I'm not going to make it. Just kidding. Nothing I like to do more than go to a Shiva after I have an ANC meeting. Sorry,
Well,
I'm
you've
just,
got 8 people so far.
I know. Well, where's Terry and that's
Courtney, and
Claudette
yeah,
And Claudette and our newest person,
and Adrian. I
and
sent
Adrian.
Adrian the
was he
log.
sworn in?
He will be sworn in.
Yeah. Well, you do have a quorum right now.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, to get started.
Is it time?
I have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Okay. I'm not gonna start until, do you want to text Terry and Claudette if you, oh, here's Terry. We're just gonna let a couple more people arrive, everybody. Hi, Terry. Let's pin you up here.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi. Can you guys text Claudette? Please.
Yeah, I will.
I'm also, the other reason I need to get into this, the ANC email is to, I was trying to print the oath for our new commissioner. Uh-oh, it's 7. Just stand by, everybody. We are waiting on an additional commissioner here.
I
Oh,
sent
wow.
something to Claudette.
Thank you. I need to share a screen too, so I'm getting that ready too. Okay, it's 7, so we have a quorum, if not a full slate of commissioners here yet. I'm trying to, sorry, just take a peek and see who's here. Happy Adrian, there we go. All right, it is 7:01. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Happy spring and almost summer solstice, everybody. And welcome to the June meeting of ANC3F. First, I'd like to, seeing that we have a quorum present, I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to adopt the draft agenda as everyone has seen it. Do we have any changes?
Yeah, I will have a couple of additional resolutions or votes that we need to take when I get to the treasurer's report.
Okay, without objection?
I have one change, and that's the resolution I was putting forth.
I don't think it's on the agenda.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Thanks.
Okay. And has everyone reviewed the May minutes? I'd like to move that we adopt the May minutes without objection.
Well, actually, I do have an addition to
Do
them.
a change?
Yeah, we have been voting every month to accept QFRs for prior orders, and I need to be sure that I'll go through the minutes again, but I need to be sure that we're doing that because again, this afternoon I got dinged by the ANC office about the fact that they don't have minutes and the minutes don't reflect that we've been accepting the QFRs.
Thought
So-
we voted on them last month. Is that not?
Well, if you want, I will hold off on my abeyance until I have an opportunity to look at the minutes again, but why don't we accept them and I'll just have another vote at the end of the evening to once again accept them because I don't know what's going on. We keep sending them minutes and they don't see that we're doing something right.
Oh dear. Okay. So like from a parliamentary perspective, can we keep that open until, I mean, none of us are going to have time to look at them again, probably within the space of the meeting unless we're not paying attention.
So why don't you accept them and we'll just vote again at the end to have acceptance of the prior QFRs, and then it'll be in this month's meeting minutes and we'll do it that way.
Okay. Rachel, are you here and hearing that? Do we see Rachel on the call? I don't see Rachel yet. But we are recording it, so
Oh, and Claudette's on now.
oh, okay, great. Okay, all right, so let's move on to commissioner updates. I'm trying to find Claudette here. Mitch, do you want to start first?
I have no major updates that won't be happening during the committee meeting or through the evening.
Marilyn?
I wanted to have mine in the committee, the schools and universities. I'll give my comments.
Okay, sounds great. Commissioner Hewitt? Terry? Do you have any commissioner updates?
No, I only have housing committee updates.
Okay,
Thanks.
Commissioner David?
Good evening, everyone. Just update, DDOT had an open house over the weekend on Saturday, and which was like one of the first open houses for with DDOT and ANC commissioners, and was able to meet the new acting director, Susan, and I cannot pronounce her last name. And on I think Thursday, there'll be a hearing for her as she's going through the process of being the director of DDOT, and so I'll be one of the people testifying on Wednesday on her behalf. Another item is I work with 4740 Connecticut Avenue and Pepco on evaluating the last few years of their account, and it turns out that they had been double charged for the past couple of years, and so I was able to help rectify that account. And then the third thing is during the open house at DDOT, got a chance to talk to DDOT has numerous teams. So got a chance to speak to various departments under DDOT, and was able to talk to the team that do research when you send in like a 311 request or any other traffic services investigation request. So thinking about doing something with Reno Road, I've been getting emails from constituents regarding Reno Road because it's higher pedestrian location. And so coming down a pipeline, we'll be looking into what we can do to enhance security on Reno Road. Thank you. That's my report.
Great. Maybe we can connect on streets and sidewalks with that because that's the stuff that we're working on now. I have a couple of announcements. Adjacent to the Chevy Chase, the Forest Hills Playground on Brandywine, the Streets and Sidewalks Committee has requested or put in a TSI for a raised crosswalk. So basically like a crosswalk that fills both the need of slowing traffic, directing attention to a very broadly painted crosswalk, and because it's raised, it both gives the pedestrians a better throughway and slows cars. I want to remind everyone about on the call that because of Juneteenth this week, the DPW collection day is going to slide. So for people who have, I know my trash is earlier in the week, but I think some people have later in the week trash. So please remember that because we have this middle of the week wonderful federal holiday. The Department of Energy Environment also is seeking locations for public vehicle charging in our neighborhood. So there is a questionnaire that I'm going to put into the chat. If people have any ideas, you can submit as many sites as you want for a place to put a public charging station. And I think that's a great opportunity for us to think about where we might provide that resource within our neighborhood. I know I have a couple of ideas, but everybody should really engage in that process because it would be great to have some public charging stations. And then the last thing is something I've spoken about before, which is Canna Art, which is a new business on Connecticut Avenue next to Italian Bar, between Italian Bar and Truist. And they are currently open without a medical or any other cannabis license, and they are cannabis gifting. And I have reported, I've both spoken to the business owner and I've reported that to ABCA. But I did want to let particularly parents in the neighborhood know that out of the back of that building that's being distributed, and you might want to be mindful of that, especially if your kids hang out on that block. That is my report. So on to, why don't we start? Oh, sorry, Terry, Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I wanted to piggyback off, and it was a great reminder, you're mentioning the tabletop that's being added at Brandywine in conjunction with the playground.
It's not being added, it was just requested. So that's like very early in the process. So just FYI.
I'm ahead of myself, but thank you. We've also, speaking to Paul, I've asked, and he's also submitted a request for the other side of the playground, Chesapeake.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thanks. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that. Yep. That's exactly right. So what we're trying to do is sandwich that park with safe passage in.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's the process that we have now, maybe not the process we want to have, is the TSI process. That's how those requests are submitted. So we're going to keep following up on that with DDOT and try and push it along as best we can. Thank you. So let's stay with you, Commissioner Hewitt, and go right to Housing and Neighborhoods Committee report.
Thank you. I've spoken to DPW concerning the trash and other issues as a follow-up to the meeting we had about 8 weeks ago, in the park. And I'm still pursuing that through the process and alternate means within the process to get this rectified and to get us on a schedule so that trash is picked up regularly. I had a fruitful conversation with the Department of Buildings, specifically for Connecticut House, with the issues that are going on with Mr. Williamson. Thanks to our MOCR getting me in contact with him. It's quite fruitful. There will be a housing committee meeting in person at Connecticut House on the 25th. I need to get that notice out tonight. And that's where we are at the moment. There will be a few other agencies. He's bringing a couple of colleagues, and he was engaging with the office that deals with rodents, and he also provided more insight as to how the Department of Buildings communicates with landlords and when there are issues. And so I'll further discuss that during the housing committee meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioner Slatnick, schools and universities.
I have 2 items. One, I attended the swearing in of the new UDC Chief of Police on May 30th. And the thing that I would like to impart is that he has experience with the Philadelphia Housing Authority Police, and his area of expertise is domestic abuse. So it is a resource for us. And when I spoke with him, he gave me his card, and he did say that he would be willing to discuss the subject with us, and maybe even willing to interface with maybe some of the buildings. The second thing was the Burt School budget cuts. Councilman Fruman's office confirms that the $343,690 of the requested funding was approved at the June 11th DC Council budget meeting. So that is very good news. And those are the 2 things that I wish to impart.
Thanks, Marilyn. Mitch, do you want to speak to Parks and Watershed or punt to Soapstone?
No, I don't want to go to Soapstone. We'll do it. We'll do it.
Time. Yep.
Yeah, we'll do. No, I actually need some time for the committee.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm so sorry. Think I know what you're going to say. How dare I?
Don't worry about it.
Please go ahead.
2 things. I have to admit that I've been a bit remiss in not calling regular meetings of the committee, and that's going to change. I have figured that I was communicating with members of the committee through the Soapstone work that I've been doing, but I have heard from a number of members of the committee who would like to start seeing regular meetings. And some of what those committee members have mentioned to me is number 2, that we want to turn our sights on the upkeep of the Forest Hills playground and park area there. And so we are going to start reconstituting what had been, as I understand it, a more varied committee of organizations that have an interest in that, including friends of the park and parents of the park and, agencies at the DC level, and start having more regular meetings and start moving forward with programs and projects to address some of the the aspects of the park that people have been asking me about. So I wanted in the record that we're going to be following up on those suggestions. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you so much. And maybe we could have some sort of like working group, because I feel like Terry's done a lot of work on the park. I think Streets and Sidewalks is in on the park. So I feel like everybody here is like gung ho about helping in any way we can on that. So
Right.
please keep us all in the loop. I'm really glad that you're putting that front and center again in your committee work.
Yep.
Thanks so much for that update. Paul Harrison, are you here?
Yes.
And
Can you hear me?
I do. Hold on, I'm gonna pin you. Spotlight for everyone. Oh no, that's not gonna work. Sorry. All right,
That's
go
all right. That's
ahead,
all right.
and
I'm
I'll try and make you big.
Yeah, I'm going to share screen anyway in a moment. So,
Okay.
so good evening, everyone. The big issue that Streets and Sidewalks has been discussing since we all last met comes to the central reason for Streets and Sidewalks to exist in the first place, which was to address the numerous gaps in the sidewalk network in ANC3F. And as some of you heard me say before, the good news is the city has been increasing its funding for addressing sidewalk gaps. The city is under a statutory requirement to have a sidewalk on both sides of the streets, on every street in the District of Columbia. And as I'm sure folks who walked around Wakefield and Forest Hills, North Cleveland Park know, we've got a number of streets that do not meet that or have no sidewalk at all. The good news is that they have identified a couple of sidewalk investments for this coming year in ANC3F. And
I'm trying to pull it up so that you don't have to while you're
I can do
talking.
it. I got it.
Oh, okay. You're a stronger man than I am.
I'm
Good job.
prepared, at least for this. So, so the two core project areas that we have right now identified is dealing with what we like to call the bow tie up on on Fessenden, where the sidewalk ends about halfway down Fessenden, down that big hill, and then goes through that intersection in front of the new Israeli residence and in the entrance to Linnaean Park, and then continues across in front of the Kuwaiti residence. So that was actually in response to feedback from the commissioners of ANC3F that got moved up to address that longstanding community concern. They have not yet actually done designs for that area. They're just doing their contracting with their outside designers at this point for all their citywide work, but we should see that soon. The second section that they had identified in 3F is the south side of Albemarle Street from the entrance of Soapstone Park to 29th Street. And this raised some issues for a number of members of the community brought to us and to the ANC, really twofold, but the most pressing of which is that there's a section of Albemarle just beyond the entrance of Soapstone Park where there's a big a valley, for lack of a better term, that has a lot of big trees in it and would require some significant engineering and tree cutting to bridge that gap, which would be expensive and disruptive. And so we had, thanks to one of the community members, Josh, who reached out, DDOT came out, Christian, who's in charge of community outreach, Karen, who's in charge of the sidewalk gap program, another gentleman who I believe was an engineer, and several of our commissioners and community members met out there to look at this and agreed that this was an engineering and tree challenge, and DDOT was very clear that urban forestry has the veto power on trees that are cut even within public space. And one of the things that folks may want to keep in mind is that when you see homes and particularly in Forest Hills or Wakefield that have big lawns in front of them and that go straight to the street, a lot of that is actually land that is owned by the city. It's not an easement or any kind of permission. It is actually public land. And there are ways that you can see how wide that is. So Streets and Sidewalks and other members of the community have been speaking for some time about the key priorities for places where there are sidewalk gaps in our ANC, where there's no sidewalk on either side of the street, and the traffic is either heavier or faster and causes more concerns. So what I'm showing you guys right now is the city's map of all the sidewalk gaps in our ANC, and you can see up here that I've selected ANC3F. And you can, if I click this on, you can see the light blue lines are the places where we have sidewalk gaps. It is not perfect, but it represents most of them. And so, for example, I live right over here, if you guys can see my mouse, on the corner of Appleton and 31st. It's a very lightly trafficked streets. There's no sidewalk on either side, but that's probably not our top priority. DDOT did ask us to provide them with a list of priorities, and that is something the Streets and Sidewalks Committee has been working on for years now. There was also an ANC resolution, the previous ANC, that addressed a number of those. So from that, we've started to work on a resolution, which I believe will show you for a first draft on this call, that would formalize our request to DDOT that it prioritize these particular streets. And to give you a sense of that list, so we did meet and talk about this. The first section is the section of Davenport Street running from Linnaean west to where there is a street, there is a sidewalk already between 32nd and, if I zoom in here enough, you can sort of see where it is. Yeah, so you can see, folks can see that sidewalk currently ends there. So there is no way to walk without walking in the street going down towards Rock Creek Park from there. You can also see that there's a section of 30th Street going up a hill that's adjacent to that, that is the second priority. And as many of you know, in the mornings and the evenings, there's a good amount of traffic that comes through our neighborhood from the east up Davenport, turns left on 30th, and then turns right on Albemarle. So that hill there in particular, from that driveway on down, is particularly sketchy for pedestrians. So that was the second place that we identified. The third place, which is adjacent to all of this, is the section of Linnaean, again from 30th Street to Davenport. And I just kind of want to highlight that the way this is currently, there's a long section, particularly if you walk up if you're trying to walk into the park or walk from the existing sidewalks on Linnaean, where it's basically a pedestrian dead end. You can't get there from here. So if DDOT is able to bridge at least some of that section on Davenport and on 30th, and possibly Linnaean, people may still need to walk around a little bit, but particularly folks who have some mobility challenges or are young will have a sidewalk going all the way through. We also in the resolution highlight another issue that we have been talking about for some time, which is the stretch of 35th Street from Yuma to Alton. We were not comfortable yet recommending that they prioritize building a sidewalk on that section because we had some conversations with that community. There's some engineering challenges there as well, and the yards are very shallow. So this is actually a place where we have recommended through the TSI process, which Commissioner David mentioned at the beginning, and I'll touch on in a minute, that DDOT look at some alternatives, like actually putting a sidewalk into the street bed. So taking the parking lane and making that a sidewalk. There's enough parking around here that can be addressed. And again, safety prioritized over parking, but also potentially making this stretch of 35th from Alton to Yuma one way going south towards Yuma, so that folks coming across Yuma are directed to the intersection with Connecticut rather than coming across this down this hill and around this curve, which causes a pedestrian safety issue, but also directs traffic to the corner of Albemarle and Connecticut, which we all know for a number of reasons, including the car wash and the Bread First line and other things, is probably one of our most confusing and dangerous intersections. So if we can reduce some of the car traffic going to there by directing folks to down Yuma past the UDC into the intersection, that'll be better. So that's the core of the resolution. Commissioner Carlson, do you want to, should we show that resolution to folks, or how do you want to proceed from here?
I think that's a good sort of introduction as to what it is, and why don't we post it? I mean, anybody can obviously email us and take a peek, but we'll post it in advance of our next meeting when we will vote on it. And again, I would just continue to encourage people to engage with us in Streets and Sidewalks. It touches so many aspects of how we live, where we live. It's a very active and engaged committee that always could use more voices and more help.
And I do see that we have a question. I wanted to say two
Oh.
things before that, if that's okay. So the first is we're going to schedule an in-person meeting to come back to 35th between Alton and Yuma, and give folks on the block enough time to come out and meet us and walk that. We'll see if we can get DDOT to join us, because I think we need to take another look at that. It is a critical safety priority. We just may need to use some different tools. And the other is, as always, I will post my email address in the chat. If you would like to be added to our meeting list and our conversation, interested in participating in Streets and Sidewalks, please let me know, and I will bring you into that conversation.
Next month, an agenda item, Linnean or Linnean? I want to know what I want to know what people think, and if anyone knows the real answer. Amy, you have your hand up.
Hi, I had recommended at the last ANC, in the meantime, between sidewalks, I'm putting speed humps on 35th. They shoot down from Yuma to Albemarle. Is that a different committee? But what has happened to that recommendation? Is that a different committee?
No, so I'm glad you raised that. We have asked DDOT to look at this, but this is one of these key issues because do I have 2 more minutes, Commissioner Carlson?
Quick, 2 minutes.
Yes, okay. So Commissioner Claudette, David mentioned the traffic safety input system, or traffic safety investigation, I guess it is. There is a dashboard for that, which I will also post, because you have to kind of complain to DDOT and then see if they actually put it in the system. So I'm meaning to go back and check this as to whether we are in there correctly. Here we are in Alton, right? So we see a couple of requests here, but I think we need to probably go in and improve these and come back to that and really sort of push that thing. So we have a traffic safety, a traffic speed one, and also speed. So I think we do need to follow up on the speed hump concept there, because I agree that is a good near-term thing. I do also want to sort of really quickly encourage people, if they're interested, to figure out how to use the online portal for DC311. This is where you can put these issues in. So for example, if you go here, I'm going to do a request really quickly, and you have to go to there's a bunch of different things here, and you can get lost in this. But for example, if you do all service requests, and we can come down here and do, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. You can see how many things are here, you know, if they need the grass mowing.
Don't be daunted by the number of categories.
But the great thing here is you can communicate with the agencies very explicitly on this, you know, broken parking meter, graffiti, you know, they're not mowing the grass on public space. But again, if you come down here to public space inspection, someone's blocking the sidewalk with their construction. But down here, again, roadway repair, signs missing, all of these things are available to you. You know, we are volunteers. I'm not an elected member. The commissioners are elected members, but everybody on this is a volunteer. So encourage as much communication and use of these systems as possible. And again, here I can do a traffic safety input. If anybody ever needs help filling one of these in, just let me know by email. But this is where you would, if you go to that TSI thing and you don't see exactly what you've asked for listed there, you need to come here and put one of these in until they get it right. So again, I'll put these into them.
I would just emphasize also, if you anybody who makes a 311 request, if you want to send it to your SMD commissioner, and send us that confirmation number, we are able to, help you track that, help make sure that that gets, that those requests, I mean, we can't get it done faster, but, we can continue to help you follow up. But again, like a lot of, I think what Paul is alluding to is like, people will say, hey, there's a bunch of trash on Brandywine. Well, like, we're all volunteers. So like, if you then report trash on Brandywine or a speed, a request for speed humps on 35th, and then say, okay, here, Courtney or Claudette or anybody, here's this confirmation number I've received from 311. You don't even have to log in. You can just be a guest and you can still get through the entire process. Email us those confirmation numbers and we can help make sure it's followed up on. But the process that we would go through to help you do something like that is the same as you can go through yourself as a citizen consumer of DC here. Commissioner Hewitt. And we got to hustle because now we're getting behind time. You know how I feel about that.
Thank you for the, well, yeah, we all agree on that one. Thank you for the explanation. Just to answer your question, the American pronunciation is Linnaean. It's short. The vowel is short.
Darn it.
The proper pronunciation and his name is Linnaean with the L-I, lie, or however you want to pronounce it. That's hard. Anyhow, that's all.
I'm going to have to change my whole brain on that one, Linnaean.
Commissioner Carlson, one more thing, just real quick. I do want to emphasize Streets and Sidewalks does not just do sidewalks. We do streets as well. And we will continue to have conversations about how to advance more systematic traffic calming, not just around our schools, but on other heavy traffic streets in our neighborhood, again, like Albemarle. And I mentioned that the through traffic, we want to welcome people in our neighborhood, but help the engineering set the right expectations for a safe experience for everybody. So again, if you're interested in this stuff, please email me, join our committee. Thanks.
Thank you. And we will have that resolution up when we have our agenda up for the July meeting. We will be voting on that, and we're happy to discuss it in advance of the next meeting. Thank you so much, Streets and Sidewalks. I'm removing you. And the reason to stay on track is because the sooner we get on track, the sooner we have a new commissioner for ANC3F 05, which is what we've all been waiting for. And Adrian, can you show yourself, and I will pin you up here and we can meet you and welcome you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Oh, hi. Hold on, let me pin you up here. Welcome. Not officially 305, but almost. So welcome. And if you would just say a little bit about yourself so we can all get to know you better. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, no, of course. I'll keep it brief and help us compensate for keeping up. Hello, everyone. My name's Adrian Iglesias. I moved here. I'm not from DC. I'm from Miami, Florida, but I've been here since 2010. I went to undergrad in Georgetown, and I've stayed here since then. I've lived in Van Ness, right at the Albemarle, Connecticut intersection for about 14 years now, I believe was the math I worked out. So almost 15 years now. And yeah, I work in theater and writing. I'm a writer and performer. Since the pandemic, I've lately been doing mostly in writing and editing, but I do work in stages. If you have kids, they might have seen me at lots of the children's shows. At field trips and such, but yeah, I look forward to serving, and likely you've seen me either at breakfast or walking my very loud black dog if you're around the Van Ness neighborhood at any point in time. But I look forward to meeting more of you in person.
Thank you so much, and we will look forward to having better written resolutions. Sounds like the first order of business. Thank you so much, and you will be sworn in when our council member arrives, which will be soon, but not until later in the agenda. Okay, thank you so much. Matt, I'm going to keep you pinned because now you're on the cusp of being a commissioner, so then we're just going to keep it official here. Matt Barkley, I see you. Hi, are you there?
Hello, everyone. How are you? Oops, this is like,
It's okay. Just roll with it.
I'm completely blurry. Wow. All right. Matthew Barclay, I'm at the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I am one of two mokers in the ward. Your new ward manager started today and will be in full gear next week, I believe. So at some point, I will introduce you all.
Is that a
Also,
mystery or does the person have a name?
Hope Cousins.
Great.
Yeah.
So she could be the new you
She will be the new me, but
Okay.
with more responsibility, probably.
and a less blurry screen. We can't
And a
wait.
less blurry screen.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, some announcements. It's going to be very hot this week. The heat emergency plan has been activated. If you see any residents that are in need of free transportation to a cooling center, please dial 311. The spray parks are open as of yesterday. They opened a week early to compensate for the heat. The cooling centers are open for residents to seek relief when temperatures reach 95 degrees or higher. And so I'm going to drop a heat.dc.gov link in the chat so that you guys can find more information. I also put my information in the chat. This past week as well is the last day of school. So for one-stop shop for all information on things to do, places to go, and resources to support parents and youth during this time, you can go to summer.dc.gov to see everything that DC has to offer for you. So that's all I have for the day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate seeing your blurry self. Juanita,
Thank
UDC, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Of course, I'm well. Thank you, Commissioner. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Just a few things. I know we're trying to speed up on time.
Oh, you're great. Don't worry. Thank you.
I sent an email a few weeks ago to the ANC and to some community members letting you all know that DGS has let the university know that a fence will be put up around building 41 sometime between now and June 24th. So if anyone who has any gardening in any of the community plots, you might want to take up anything that you have because you will not have access once that fence comes up. And then between June 24th and October 16th, they're going to be doing abatement and selective interior demolition work of Building 41. So the interior things should not have any impact to the community. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that's going to be happening. And then the last thing, which is really exciting, I just learned this today. The university has been awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of State. It's called the IDEAS Grant. It's the Department of State's Increase in Diversity Education Abroad for U.S. students. UDC is one of 37 U.S. colleges and universities and one of 5 HBCUs that will use an IDEAS grant to establish, expand, and broaden American student mobility overseas in support of U.S. foreign policy goals. So that is pretty prestigious, and we are really excited to be awarded that grant. So just wanted to let the community know that, and those are my updates.
I have a couple questions. Does that help fund students going abroad in particular
Yes.
programs? So that gives them the funds to be able to do that?
Yes, and I will put a link in a chat that gives more information about it specifically so that people can read up on exactly what it's going to be doing.
That's really great. Congratulations. My second question is, we have a lot of people who frequent our meetings, and I don't know if you guys are here now, but who care deeply about the community gardens at UDC. How is that message that you thank you for bringing it up to us? Like, how are the people being notified that they need to move their plants? Like, has that already started? I mean, I'm sure the people that are very deeply
So
involved know, but
I made a
talk a little
concerted
bit more about that. Yeah.
I made a concerted effort. Once we received the information from DGS, I sent it out maybe 2 or 3 days later, once we got all of the full details and we could get a UDC communications out to our students, faculty, and staff and the community. So I made sure to send it to the UDC Garden Club website, or email address, I should say, to the ANC community. And then I also sent it to Forest Hill Connection if they chose to write an article about it or not. So we did make sure that it got out to the community.
Okay. I don't see the Mary Beth or some of those folks on the call, but if if there's anything that any of the rest of us can do to be helpful to that end, for that group, we'd like to help make that easy for the easy transition. Do they have a place for their plants to be parked in the meantime that UDC has identified?
That part, I believe so, but I don't want to say yes, 100% because that information I do not have.
Okay. Can you follow up with me just so I can make sure to I know that was one of the things they were sort of talking about, that everything was going to be, have to be trash, but that's not true. A lot of things can be transplanted if we have a good space for those to be.
Right. And Javier is out of the office until Thursday, but once I get the information from you, then I will email, or from him, I'll email you.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Slotnick?
I did want to say Juanita did reach out to the garden club, and about a week and a half ago, we started digging out some of the plants near building 41. And there is a space that's near the greenhouse on the hill that is being prepared to
Okay.
receive those things.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that update.
Awesome, thank you. Teamwork. All right, speaking for the trees, thank you. Great. Thanks, Juanita.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We really appreciate your being here.
Always.
Okay, is there anyone from the community who has issues that they'd like to raise? Commissioner Bear. I think you're on mute. Mitch?
Yes, I understand. Yes. I
Sorry.
apologize. And I'm sorry, I'm confused this evening. I've got to jump in when Matt was doing his report. There have been a number of questions about the status of the pool at Wilson. Can someone enlighten us as to where we are? Thank you.
Matt, are you still on the phone? I'm so glad you brought that up because I also forgot to mention that. I don't know if we still have him, and I'm glad that needs to stay front of mind, as does the issue with the Jackson Reed Theater. That's also, I think, been delayed. I think we lost Matt, but we will have Councilmember Fruman. So even though that's not quite on the agenda with him, maybe he can speak to it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for keeping it front of mind. Is there anyone from the community who wants to has any issues that they would like to raise? If not, we're gonna move along, having made up all of our time. Bob Daling from the Citizens Advisory Committee on the Connecticut Multimodal Project. Are you on the phone, Bob? Maybe we're a little bit ahead of him. Paul, if you're still on the phone, would you mind pinging him for me?
Yes, gotcha.
Thank you so much. If we don't have him, then we may need to skip a little bit ahead, and I'm so sorry, I don't like to do this in the agenda because then I get confused. But we then probably have to hopscotch over Councilmember Freeman, who won't be on until 8, and the swearing in, and so maybe we'll head to DC Water and then here he is. Sorry, false alarm, everybody. I hope he's on and ready. Excuse me for the little bit of. Bob, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Hi, I'm so sorry you're here and now you're on without any.
I'm on. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's your
That's fine.
time.
That's wonderful. I checked in a little early. Sorry, I'm late. I hope I'm not
No,
late.
thank you
Okay.
very much for being here. You've been introduced as a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Connecticut Avenue Multimodal Project, as well as I think the former chair of the Streets and Sidewalks and a very
Yes.
active member of that committee. Thank you so much for agreeing to report on this. And I can share, you tell me when you're ready and I will share the slides.
Why don't we wait just a minute? I'll talk for maybe a minute about how we got here, and then you can share the slides. So,
Perfect,
as
thanks.
I'm sure a lot of the folks in this meeting know, back in 2018-19 timeframe, DDOT started a project, which I believe they called the Connecticut Avenue Safety Study and Reversible Lanes something. It had a name. At any rate, they studied many options to redesign Connecticut Avenue, and they settled on what is colloquially called Concept C, which involved a lot of different changes, including having bicycle lanes essentially on both sides of the street. There was going to be parking in some of the business areas, and of course, 2 lanes of traffic going in each direction. They were proceeding with that plan for roughly 2 years, looking at how or whether it could be implemented. And recently, in the last few months, DDOT has come back and announced that they do not intend to proceed with that particular project, Concept C. And they introduced a new plan, which I think now we can cue those slides. They held a public meeting on June 3rd, and the members of the Community Advisory Council, that would be both Commissioner Carlson and I are for ANC3F. We participated in the meeting also. They announced.
You guys seeing this? Sorry, excuse me. Can everybody see
I
the screen?
see it.
Okay, great. Is
Yeah,
this the slide you want?
That is the slide I want. Yes. So what they announced was that they have a new concept in mind. This is not apparently a done deal, but they announced that this is what they're thinking about. So they would, as this slide shows, there would be 2 lanes, 2 traffic lanes in both directions. And then in the other 2 lanes, the left side and the right side, there would be parking all through the 3.2 mile section of Connecticut Avenue, essentially parking 24/7, both sides of the street. So that's what they announced at the beginning of June. If we move to the next slide,
Are you still seeing my screen? It just went off for me.
I still see your screen.
Okay, good. Next
So they
slide.
also announced that there would be several design changes and that they would intend to include left turn pocket lanes at most of the intersections along the 3 mile stretch. We're not seeing the slide now, but that's okay.
Sorry. Now I gotcha.
There we go. Come back up.
Is it there?
It's coming along.
Huh.
I'm sure we'll get there.
Sorry, it's up there. How's that?
There it is.
Sorry.
So this was the slide we just saw. This would show 2 lanes in each direction with parking on both sides of the street. At some intersections, there would be an alternate configuration, which is on the next slide if we manage to get to it. And there would be left turn pocket lanes. So that would sort of eliminate the parking near that intersection. But you would be able to, of course, turn left on a light. So it'd be 2 lanes in each direction with a little left turn pocket lanes at quite a few of the main intersections along the corridor. In addition to that, as a way of sort of protecting the parking, they're proposing to have what they call curb bulb outs at each intersection. So the curb would kind of come out into the existing parking lanes and sort of make it so that you couldn't drive, north and south in those parking lanes. So that's their current plan. As for some of the other safety features that were supposed to be included in Concept C, well, of course, we don't have the reversible lanes anymore, so that would continue. There's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, which was reduced from 30 a couple of years ago. I believe they have some other sort of safety features in mind, additional speed cameras, red light cameras, and speed cameras at various places. As for the multimodal aspects of the project, that would be the bicycle lanes, they essentially said they don't intend to include those on Connecticut Avenue, at least not now, but they are engaging with us, the Community Advisory Council, and I think that we'll hear more on that soon. I don't have a whole lot more to add. Courtney, if you think I missed anything from the meeting, please feel free to jump in.
No, I think you covered it quite well. Does anyone have questions? I know this is an issue that people have been very concerned about. I can get to questions. I just have to stop sharing the screen. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I'll do that. Excuse me if you're looking at my my computer, guys.
I'll mute myself for now.
Thank you so much for that update. I mean, I think there we go. All right, starting with Commissioner Slatnick. Now I can see you.
I had understood that it was being explored about bike lanes on like 36th Street and maybe changing it to one way or something. That nobody says that the bike lane has to be on Connecticut Avenue. It could be on a parallel road. Is that true, or that's not been explored?
Well, what the folks from DDOT told us on June 3rd was that, and I might be getting the wording wrong here, but essentially that they are going to take a broad look at bicycle lanes citywide. They intend to find a north and south route that would bring people from, Chevy Chase Circle into, say, DuPont Circle or wherever. They did not announce any routes that I heard on June 3rd, but I think they're looking at options.
I think what they said was they're embarking on a 5-year study of bike lanes. I think those were their words. So there's a marked lack of specificity in the announcement of a 5-year study. Says we're telling you nothing, we know nothing, we commit to nothing within the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Commissioner Hewitt?
The word that stayed with me with DDOT is neighborhoods. So it's more akin to what Marilyn said, the last they said. Now, lots may have changed in the last couple of weeks, but the word that stayed with me, neighborhoods, which was important and good when I heard that. But who knows?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by neighborhoods?
That's the term they used when they said that they would not be using Connecticut Avenue.
Oh, neighborhoods for the bike lanes. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Right. So not using Connecticut Avenue, but using neighborhoods and more in tune to what Marilyn described. Thank you.
Marjorie?
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm assuming that because they're doing a 5-year study on the bicycles, that would be integrated into this plan so that nothing will happen. I'm saying as a statement, but it's really a question. I'm assuming that nothing will happen for 5 years because they're studying bikes. Is that correct?
Not the way they presented it on June 3rd. The way they presented it on June 3rd, Courtney may have heard it differently, but they described this 5-year bike plan as sort of separate and apart from their new redesign ideas about Connecticut Avenue. So I think they said they would try to implement the new redesign on Connecticut Avenue within roughly 2 years, assuming this design stays, the new design they're suggesting.
I see, sort of. It seems like they should be integrated.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, they should also be integrated with WMATA. And that was my major, I attended both this CAC meeting as well as a briefing that WMATA had for ANC commissioners about Better Bus. And I can just express to you my tremendous frustration that these two projects are siloed. It seems nonsensical that you could do a large project on Connecticut Avenue and not think about how you're getting, I mean, my takeaway from the CAC meeting, Bob, was that it doesn't please anybody because it doesn't take it doesn't give anybody an option to get off the road out of a car. Not, you know, and I wasn't a huge fan of Concept C. I'm not afraid to tell you, but I mean, but I'm not a huge fan of this or a fan at all of this new plan because it doesn't do anything for anybody except maybe help you make an easier left turn. It doesn't give anybody a way to get out of a car. It doesn't give you any option for transit, any option for bike, any option for anything except making that road. So it's a road, they're calling it a road diet, right? Well, like a diet requires some things from somebody, and we're really not giving anyone, you know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy in the diet world of like,
Yeah.
taking you're just still telling everyone, you're giving them a diet without any but still the only thing on the menu is ice cream. I don't know if that works, but I think this new proposal, and I think it was roundly seen by both the people who are in favor, very strongly in favor, as we all have heard, or very strongly opposed to the bike lanes. I sort of feel like I'm in the middle. Nobody likes it. And I think with good reason, because it doesn't serve anybody except maybe parked cars and left turners. Is that fair, Bob?
No, I think
Well,
I think
I'm a
that's
little
fair
more
assessment.
like
No, it's
feeling
I'm,
feisty about it.
I'm trying to be a little neutral.
That's why you're that's why you're presenting and
I'm
not
trying
me.
to be neutral. I mean, I was involved for the last 5 or 6 years. I was a former chair of our Streets and Sidewalks Committee. ANC3F was very much behind Concept C, the concept that apparently is being abandoned. What DDOT explained is that as they got into the design phase, as they called it, they just didn't think they could really make it work. Now, you could argue with that, but I agree with you, Courtney. What they have announced does not seem to really be pleasing to anyone, from what I could tell, based on the reactions in both the public meeting and in the Community Advisory Council. So there's a lot of uncertainty still, I think. Well, I think we need to wait and see how DDOT reacts to the input they have now started to receive. And that's a question, I guess, for our ANC, like what kind of input do you want to give them next? But I'll let you work on that.
No, and I think I think this, our commission would, obviously like to hear from people. I think my input to the CAC as a group was, let's, now that it's so obvious every time, you read something about this, you just know in the first 2 lines of any email, if a person is a very strongly pro bike lane or against bike lane. Let's move forward, because that has not served our neighborhood, right? To be so polarized on this issue. Let's move forward together with some plans that can talk about transit bus lanes, pop-up bus lanes. I know I'm working on a resolution because this commission needs to respond back to WMATA, and actually every citizen can respond back to WMATA on their new Better Bus plan by July 15th is the deadline for feedback. Our next meeting isn't until July 16th. So we're going to try and figure out if we can get them our sort of draft resolution before then. But we need to go forward with some plans to get people out of cars if you're going to narrow those traffic lanes, because, again, I think one of our mayor's stated goals is that she wants to have people getting downtown. We want people to get downtown. We want that street to be passable. We also want the street to be safe, which it is not at this point. And so, like Marjorie, to your point, waiting 5 years for that road to get safe, how many more people are going to get in accidents? How many more people are going to get hit at these dangerous intersections? And I know there are plenty of them. Commissioner Hewitt.
you know, to that point, unlike other cities, whether they're near or far, there's no busing system for students. So they either have WMATA or they can bike with their families, which is really lovely to see families biking. But there's a lack of understanding or application, from what I can gather, to include this important community, kids getting to school and back and forth. So what you're saying, to your point, to overlap WMATA and streets and bike lanes together, comprehensive, holistically, to help serve the entire community. I absolutely agree. The question I actually had was for Bob, when you were listening to this meeting, because I was listening and watching, what is the deal with the left-hand turn? Because you only see 2 lanes going north or south. How do they create that left-hand turn without holding up traffic? Did they say?
Yes, yes, there was actually another slide that we didn't show, but at the intersections where they would have the left turn lanes, there would not be any parking for some short part, you know, near those intersections. So that provides enough space to kind of move the traffic lanes, as if you would imagine the northbound traffic lanes shift a little bit to the right, I guess, southbound. So you have space for that pocket lane. And there is an illustration. It actually does look fairly safe, you know, I don't drive a lot, but it's pretty safe as an illustration. I'm sure we can circulate those slides and it'll be easy for you to visualize it if you see the slide.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I sneezed. I got so excited that I sneezed and now I was overly muted. David Weinberg.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Courtney. And I apologize. I've been trying to figure out how to raise my hand. It's sort of hidden here, but I found it. So thank you for recognizing me. And thank you, Bob, for all the work you're doing on the CAC. So I've been a big fan and very active on the bike lanes. And frankly, I think my opinion is that Concept C was vetted. It was supported by the mayor. A lot of controversy, but it was vetted and approved. And then they came out with this alternate plan in a matter of weeks, maybe a month or so, extraordinarily fast, where the other one took a lot of deliberative time, consultative with all the community. It just seems that this is the wrong direction for DDOT to go, for the city to go. And I urge ANC3F to support Concept C, because that was the model that everyone rallied around. Most people rallied around. This is basically giving us parking for a stretch of Connecticut Avenue. Does not help safety one bit. And there's no alternate plan. There's no alternate route to put bike lanes. Yes, there's Rock Creek Park. I go down Rock Creek Park often for cycling. But if you want to go down Connecticut Avenue, going down to Rock Creek Park and then back up again is just really way out of the way. And those hills are pretty steep. So again, I encourage all commissioners and all ANCs to really support Concept C, because that is the way that everyone can travel safely and has been vetted widely. And I should say too, as a 2-year resident to the district, fairly new, I moved here for 2 reasons. Many reasons really, but 2 stand out. The not promised, but the likeliness we would have safe bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue, and I'm just off Connecticut Avenue, and we'd have Soapstone Park. And so far, I'm waiting for both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Understood. Like Bob said, I mean, I think Concept C is not gonna come back. There will be a new iteration. But you know, there should be a safe way for people to travel. I really hear you on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob, so much for your much more measured approach to this topic than I am able to muster.
You are welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
I may
you.
sign off.
Okay,
soon.
thank you so much.
Glad to be here. All right. bye.
I think, Councilmember Freeman, are you here? You are here. Oh, he is here.
I am here.
Can I find you?
Yep,
There
you
you
have.
are. Hi.
Hi there, how you doing?
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate your taking the time to be here for our meeting on Zoom.
My pleasure. I did go over to the small auditorium at UDC and learn that you're just doing it on Zoom, so
I-
apologies.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We will hold a meeting there shortly in the future to honor your time spent getting there. So thanks for being here. We wanted I know these meetings, we've talked a lot about the housing issues on Connecticut Avenue, and I know a lot of people are in constant communication with both us and your office. And I know how much time you've been devoting to this issue. So I thought maybe you could speak to some of the legislative work you're doing on the issues of housing on that our residents are facing on Connecticut Avenue.
Sure, I'm more than happy to. And then I think would make sense for me to talk for a bit and then take questions.
Please. Thank you so much.
And then in the questions, if there could be other topics besides housing that people want.
Yeah, we already have one topic that we want you to speak to. Wilson Pool. We
Okay.
Thank you.
And also I have on my to-do list for tonight, I have the oath for a new commissioner.
Yep,
So
we're
maybe
doing that right. We're gonna actually, we could do that first or second. Should we have Adrian sworn in order to hear these important housing issues as a real commissioner? Do you want to do that first?
I'm happy to do that, however you want to do it.
Let's do that. Let's make it a full team here before we get into it. Adrian, are you ready?
Of course.
Welcome, Adrian. So if you read after me, I, Adrian Iglesias, having been duly elected as a commissioner.
I, Adrian Iglesias, having been duly elected as commissioner
Of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions of the District of Columbia.
Of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions of the District of Columbia.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that.
I, and state your name.
I, Adrian Iglesias.
Will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will perform such duties as may be assigned to me.
That I will perform such duties as may be assigned to me.
As member of said commissions.
As member of said commissions.
To the best of my ability, without fear or favor.
To the best of my ability, without fear or favor.
That I will exercise my best judgment.
That I will exercise my best judgment.
And will consider each matter before me.
And will consider each matter before me.
From the viewpoint of the best interest of the District of Columbia as a whole.
From the viewpoint of the best interest of the District of Columbia as a whole.
And that I will faithfully discharge said duties.
And that I will faithfully discharge said duties.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Government nerds love this stuff. I'm verklempt. Yay.
So, and Adrian, maybe if you have a copy of the form, do you have a copy of the form?
Somewhere in here, yes.
So then you should sign it and send it to me, and then I will sign it and drop it off at the Office of ANC Commissioners.
Lovely. I'll make sure to do so.
Okay, now on to maybe the less fun part, because the issues around housing on Connecticut Avenue obviously have been incredibly challenging. I'm gonna put it in maybe 3 buckets. and then people will have all kinds of takes on it and we can have an extended conversation. One of the issues, and I see Harry is on, is that there have been questions about how much landlords are paid for in voucher rents. And there is a powerful argument that the way in which the district did it for a long time radically overpaid landlords for rents for voucher tenants. And that had a very distorting effect on the market. And there was an investigation by the Federal Housing and Urban Development agency, and they found that the district had not even conducted what was called a rent reasonableness test to make sure that they were paying rents that were appropriate for the units that were being rented. And I think people have crossed the spectrum from homeless advocates to tenant associations. Everyone other than landlords, I think, thought that was a very serious problem and one that needed to be remedied. And one of the things that happened was that the district adopted a new method of doing rent reasonableness. And we've been trying to test that to see how it's working. I don't have a lot of confidence in that new test, but initially out of the box, it was at least better than what had existed before. We did legislation to say that that the rent paid for a voucher tenant in a rent stabilized building, if it was to be reasonable, should be the rent stabilized rent, not inflated market rent, because otherwise you would have one form of affordable housing, federally subsidized and locally subsidized housing, displacing another form of affordable housing, rent stabilized stock. We had a lot of co-introducers to that bill. It is sitting in the Housing Committee now. There has not been a lot in the Housing Committee that has gotten a markup. This has not gotten a markup. We had a lot of support out of the box. Some of the big landlords actually didn't oppose our legislation, but a group of small landlords have very aggressively opposed it and been trying to keep it off of track. And we've been pretty consistently pressing the chairman of the Housing Committee to bring it up for a markup. We think we have answers to some of the questions that have been raised. But it hasn't happened. It's not the only thing that hasn't come up for a markup, so I'm not taking it personally, but I really want to press to get a markup on that bill and get a vote on that bill in the fall. So that is one category of issues that I know trouble lots of people and trouble me. Another set of issues relates to behavior that arises in some cases. And when I talk about this, I always want to underscore that for many, many people benefiting from the voucher program allows them to get up on their feet and they can succeed. And it's a really positive thing for many people. There are also people who it could work really well for if they only got better support than the support that they're getting. And then there is a group of people for whom it isn't the right answer, that they need more support than can be provided through an independent living kind of arrangement with one visit from a caseworker every 2 weeks or every month. And they really need more in order for them to succeed. And in some cases, they act out in ways that are menacing to other tenants and to employees of the landlord. And we have a half a dozen cases like that up and down Connecticut Avenue that are very particular. There's somebody who is really threatening another tenant, and we're doing everything we can to try to be supportive in those situations. One of the things that we were able to do, and ironically, it's again one of the things where we aligned with AOPA, is that the Superior Court adopted a new procedure in settings where an eviction was being driven by concerns about safety. And they created a new question on the form for eviction. And if it is a case that involves safety of either another tenant or a or an employee of the landlord, then the eviction case gets expedited. But you have to put in quotes expedited, because nothing happens quickly inside of our court system. And since the pandemic, one, there was a freeze on evictions, and then there was a giant backlog, and now things that once took 2 months take a year. And so these are situations that have a feeling of urgency, and there is increased urgency, but you couldn't really say that it's gotten to true urgency because of some of the challenges in the eviction processes. On eviction, the AOPA just did a major report where they talked about some of the challenges in the eviction space. And none of us want to see evictions. I mean, it's a painful thing, but we have a situation where there are folks who've been in a building for 3+ years and haven't paid rent, and they're building up delinquencies in the tens of thousands of dollars. And for the landlords, this becomes a giant challenge. A different topic that I'm going to talk about is maintenance. And it's very hard for a landlord to be doing maintenance if they have a significant number of their tenants who aren't paying them and who are never going to pay them, because they have these delinquencies and they're in an eviction process, and eventually they will be evicted, but they will not pay the delinquencies. So the unit is sat there without being paid for years. It's a real problem. Often we're angry at landlords, but we do need to see some of the challenges that they're confronting, and that is a challenge that they're confronting. That has an impact on the maintenance they can do. It also means that they have to maximize their rent increases to other people because they have people who aren't paying them. So in these behavior settings, we've taken some steps. I think in most of the cases that are the worst cases, the landlords actually are proactively trying to address them, but the system is really slow. And reforming the system is going to be a challenge. It's not the direction that the council is going to want to go. This recent report from AOPA, I think, is going to be important because we have to wrap our heads around how do we solve those issues. So you have behavior issues where the landlord wants to be cooperative, whether they want to or not, they are being. And then you may have a setting where the landlord is not cooperative and is ignoring the threats that somebody might be facing. And we're trying to work with colleagues to come up with legislation that could help to deal with that issue, to put pressure on landlords to take action where there are safety issues out there. Building a consensus around that is going to be tricky, but I think this is a program that is very important, that if it loses all public support, it becomes an impossible thing to do. And so folks who support the program and folks who oppose the program should be joining together around accountability inside of the programs. And so that's a thing, that's a set of legislation that we're working on. Then there's another issue around maintenance, and I'm going to put in the basket in terms of maintenance also security. We have a bunch of buildings couple in particular where we're constantly hearing about significant maintenance issues that aren't being addressed. And we are on those landlords constantly pressing them to address these kinds of issues. We just last week had a meeting with the owners and management company of a particularly problematic building. And I actually do think the fact that we met and the fact there's the Heisenberg principle of the act of observing changes the phenomenon observed. I did think that that was a thing in this meeting, that they took us for a tour of the building. Everything had been cleaned up, and everything that we pointed to, they were going to get back to us with specific responses. For good or ill, we need to be doing that serially with the different buildings on the corridor, because there are issues that have to be addressed. One of the big ones is security, and going back to the safety issues, because there are folks who feel like that they are in danger or crimes are being committed, and there needs to be security guards there, and there needs to be cameras there. And the answer that we often get, we're constantly pressing for these things to be provided, and the answer that we often get is that the landlords can't afford it. That it's expensive to pay for. If a management company has 4 buildings, they might have one security guard who goes from building to building. Well, given the number of police visits to different buildings, it's just not adequate, and they need to be doing better. There is a little bit of movement on that. And we're going to do a round of meetings with different landlords in order to try to press them to provide improved security. We have one situation right now where where a landlord is trying to move against a tenant who has created a very serious problem, and none of the tenants want to testify. And you can understand where they're coming from. They live in a building where there's somebody who they feel very threatened by. It's clear that this person has been violating a lot of different things, but if they're the one who sticks their neck out and testifies, and then the process gets bogged down for a year, what does that do for them? And you hate to think about these kinds of dynamics that are out there, but they are out there in some of these settings, and we are trying to find ways to address them. So, and then so I think I'm gonna stop there and invite questions on anything about these things and any other topics. I do want to circle back to that. What I have focused on, one, in the maintenance issues, we're working on legislation around trying to tighten requirements on maintenance issues. But on these safety issues, it is really, really important to recognize that, as disturbing as the episodes are, that it isn't everybody, that there's a small number of people who are acting in very inappropriate ways in some cases. And for many others, this is a path to getting some stability, to getting the chance for their children to go to a school in this area. And so you want to be very careful not to paint with too broad of a brush here. But you also want to be very careful not to put your head in the sand and pretend like there aren't problems where there are. So let me stop there and invite questions.
Harry, excuse me.
Yes, first I'd like to thank you, Councilmember Fruman, for your work on this. And I know you've worked really hard over a long period of time. We've talked many times about it, and no other people have. And it's a very contentious issue. And I have to commend you for your courage in dealing with it when a lot of other people won't, even given extensive information. I wanted to comment on just a few things, because I see others are waiting as well. the question of overpayments, the Post last year came out with a report, investigative report by Steve Thompson, finding that there are about $1 million per month citywide in overpayments to landlords. $1 million a month adds up. Later in the year, the DCHA reported that it would continue to pay by $1 billion a month on existing contracts. So if you look back in time, forward and back, at least for those 2 years, it's $24 million, but the programs have been going on before that. So easily the overpayments to industry exceed $50 million. And we're in a situation of a budget crunch in the city. We need money for affordable housing. People are not, it's a problem, $50 million. I also know from talking to the reporter that that's a lowball figure because they compare to Novogradov's industry estimates. And so the actual overpayments are probably much steeper than that. We don't know how much, but if people are concerned about spending money for this, they should, for anything, they should look at these numbers, which dramatically exceed 50 million. And there's no evidence that the city council or the mayor wants to take any effort on that, except for your bill, which I give you some credit for trying to limit the overpayments in rent stabilized buildings. Also, as you point out, and I agree, that the new rent reasonableness methods, which exclude that $1 billion, are also flawed, and they're designed to continue overpayments. So the point I want to make simply, and give others a chance, that this is not designed from the beginning to help people who are low-income Washingtonians. It's not designed to help the poor. It is designed as corporate welfare to the bone. And $50 million should not be sneezed at. And the incentives caused by that amount of overpayment is what's harming these buildings. So
Let's let him speak to, let's let the council member speak to that if we could. Thank you so
Sure.
much, Harry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, thank you. And I mean, Harry, you have played an instrumental role in raising this issue for a long time. And you're right. Before I came here, I read a new report by the Urban Institute about addressing affordable housing needs that evaluated what the real demand was for deeply subsidized and shallow subsidized housing in the District of Columbia. And the bottom line conclusion of the report was, that we needed to be spending, I think I have this right, $800 million a year on housing subsidies in order for all of our folks who are at 38% AMI or lower, and to have access to housing, and for folks in the 30 to 50. AMI is average median income, which is set for a different area. So, but the idea was like that we need way more vouchers, federal vouchers and local vouchers, and then forms of shallow subsidies, and then emergency rental assistance. And I sent an email to the head of the Urban Institute, and one of the authors, the head of the Urban Institute's an old friend of mine. It's $800 million that would go to landlords. And are we overpaying? I mean, when you make the point, Harry, that when we're talking about $50 million over a number of years, like, don't sneeze at it. When we're talking about $800 million a year that we might be thinking about trying to spend in order to make this work, you have to make that right. You can't do that cavalierly. So there is this issue about overpayment. Everybody should be exercised about this issue of overpayment. And you have played an important role in ringing an alarm bell on it. I do hear you. I am trying.
Thank you.
Let's turn to others. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks a lot, Harry. And thanks for your work on this. Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, council member. How are you, sir?
Good to see you, Terry.
So next week, actually, next Tuesday, I have a meeting being held in person at Connecticut House after speaking to the Department of Buildings. And I bring that up because what was interesting, speaking to the Department of Buildings representative who will be there in person, I asked, when tenants submit 311s or pleas for help because they have rats infestation or mice or some other multitude of issues, when you send inspectors out, is the landlord notified? And he said that they're working on the system. They realize there are some problems and flaws in the system, and that yes, the landlord is notified. And I'm wondering, is there anything that can be done at your level, or at least conversationally at some point? Maybe it becomes hopefully something with teeth, where if you have, it's like a 911 call. You call 911, but when the more calls you get, you know that there's something frenetic really going on. It's the same idea with a 311. If you have people submitting pictures of rats and you have children and elderly and whomever, mice in your building, it shouldn't be that the landlord is notified so they can do what you just described in your walkthrough, where the landlord had gone through and cleaned everything up to make it look good, because it helps no one. It's just a Band-Aid that will come off, another Band-Aid, and we continue. So if there's anything that could be, sorry, sir.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say it's an excellent point. I mean, I need to look into whether or not, what authority they have to do unannounced inspections, because I think that's an important power. And if they don't have that power, they should have that power. We did do something in this budget that touches a little on this. We worked on expanding the Department of Buildings nuisance abatement program and added money so that if there's a situation where a landlord is not making an important repair, that the Department of Buildings can hire a contractor, have the contractor do the repair, and build the landlord. So we're trying to do things that was focused on door locks in what we were doing, but actually the chairman and his staff wanted to keep it flexible so that it could be used for other things, which is also sensible. So trying to create mechanisms for accountability in a setting where landlords are not being responsive, step by step, we're trying to do that. We'll look into the unannounced inspections idea.
Thank you, sir. I will say that the Department of Buildings rep, he did say that with unannounced inspections that they didn't have a lot of ability. So anything that once you have those conversations that on your end are able to do. The other piece is that Department of Buildings rep also said that they're looking at similar to what you just said about the bringing in a third party to come and fix it. They're looking at working with OAG to be able to apply fines, as well as that legal arm with the landlord. So I don't know where they are in that process, but that seemed a good direction.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I'll follow up on that. I should add, I mean, I do think the Department of Buildings, I think Brian Hanlon, who runs the Department of Buildings now, is great. And so I do think that that's a potentially good partner on issues like this. I also think Brian Schwab and his team in the Attorney General's office gets these issues and has been quite good, and also is there to be a good partner. There are players out there who are trying to make a positive difference in this space, and those agencies are important, and there's good people in place.
I absolutely agree.
I want to get as many people's questions in as we can. Julia Miller.
Thank you. Councilman Fruman, I have a question just about the nuisance building declaration. What happens then? So I actually have a two-part question. One is, what happens when it, because I understand that that 303 Van Ness has been declared a nuisance business. We understand that there was a stabbing there recently. Are changes going to be made? Are they going to require changes to be made there by the management company, or what's going on? That's my first question. My second question is on a slightly different topic, and that is the quote unquote rehabilitation of the Rock Creek Park golf course, which I'm very concerned about. I'm sure you may have read in the Washington Post the article recently on this coalition that's come together to oppose the plan. My apartment is facing Rock Creek Park. I'm very concerned about the light pollution. I'm concerned about the loss of habitat for animals in that area and birds. I'm also concerned about the tree loss and the loss of canopy trees and shade and the heat island effect, etc. As we go through a heat wave here and experience one of the warmest springs on record. So I'm just wondering, what is your stance on the Rock Creek Park Golf Course? And would you, is there a way for you as a member of the council to push for asking NCPC to reject their approval of the plan and ask them to go back to the drawing board and actually be more transparent and have a more open community dialogue to find a solution that is a win-win for everyone, that improves the golf course, but in a more ecologically responsible way that's perhaps less costly, that doesn't involve taking down 30% of the trees. Thanks.
Okay, so first on the nuisance building, I mean, I think that having a building declared, and I actually have not been deeply involved in the nuisance application and other processes, but I think having a building declared a nuisance exerts a different kind of pressure on a landlord to try to do things to remedy it. And I had asked the Attorney General, my initial thought was like, should we be trying to get to a place where more buildings could be declared nuisance? Would that be a helpful thing? And he said he didn't think that was the vehicle for a solution in this area. I hadn't had a longer conversation with them about that, but I think he thought there were reasons why that was a challenge, and there were other ways that we should be looking at it. Harry may be able to speak to what's happening at 303 Van Ness and what the implications are. I should get up to speed on that. On the golf course, I toured the golf course with folks it was before there was an organization in opposition, but the people who are leaders of the opposition, and saw what the issues were. I also toured it with the National Links Trust people to hear what their perspective is. I had expected it to come in front of the council on some sort of a bond, whether the council would support or not a bond, and that has not happened. I think it was on the agenda like a month and a half ago, and then didn't was pulled off of the agenda. So I don't know exactly where that stands. I would like to see fewer trees lost than what is proposed. I think that the folks there, the National Links Trust people do point out that there are a lot of dead trees and there are a lot of invasive trees that are actually damaging other trees there. And so there's gonna be a certain number of trees that are going to be lost, but the numbers are pretty high, and I think that they should be low.
Yeah, there's 3 dead trees, actually, if you look at their
Excuse me,
mapping.
you know what? This is a little bit off topic, so I think he's answered the question, and if we can bring this up at another meeting. I mean, I want to be able to hear everybody out. And I'm happy to put this on the agenda for next month to discuss it more deeply. If I just want to move on because there's a bunch of people waiting.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It would be great to put it on the agenda to speak with Councilman Freeman at the next meeting if possible. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm happy to discuss it. I really understand that it's an important issue, so I don't mean to to shut you down. I just want to move on.
Can I just say one other thing on this is that if you want to have a meeting on this, one of the things is I'm likely to defer to, well, defer maybe a little bit strong, but I'm going to be very interested in what are the views of Councilmember Louis George. If Councilmember Louis George sort of reached out and got in front of me on an issue in Ward 3, I would want to have been consulted first. So that is a thing that I will intend to do, is to find out exactly where she's at on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. I
Julia, on
appreciate
that issue as well, we actually were going to discuss this at one point, and again, it's out of our ANC, so that's part of the reason that we haven't discussed it more thoroughly to the same point. Kathy Gibbons.
Thank you very much for being here, council member. My questions have to do with, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I can see what you're doing. You're reading
message,
something on screen.
Yeah, a message popped up in the chat and I leaned in.
Okay. My question for you, Matt, is, and it involves a couple agencies, but I think we're coming up on about 2 years since the really devastating, HUD audit of DCHA, which administers the voucher program and public housing and other things. I think, when the board was reformed and so forth, I believe the council was going to be taking a strong position in overseeing what was going on at DCHA. I am not up to speed on where DCHA is in its conversations with HUD. I don't believe I ever saw the response of DCHA to all of the HUD concerns. And I am wondering if you can give us a little bit of an update on where they are, particularly on the topic of, say, overpayments. In addition, on the topic of the wait list, and when the wait list will actually be opened up beyond, so that it can be utilized and funds can be made available other than just to those who are chronically homeless and returning citizens. And so if you can update us a bit on that. Next, I think given that pre-screening is just about out in terms of screening applicants for their criminal history, immigration status, etc. It would seem to me that the role of DBH and its oversight of those social workers who are supporting people in permanent supportive housing is even more important, to see what's going on in the back end, and even to assure that the people who've got the voucher are actually the people living in the units and such. And I do wonder if audits of DBH have been considered. So if you could give us some updates on that, obviously also with an eye toward what the policy is on concentrating, particularly vulnerable populations in a single building, because we understand that in our area, there are 12 or 13 buildings with more than 50% occupants, holding vouchers. And we know that those are occupants largely drawn from the most vulnerable populations. So if you could give us that update from what you know on the council.
Okay, so overpayments, and I think Harry was being, if anything, charitable. So in the previous leadership of DCHA, there had been a move to look again at what the payments were, with the idea towards lowering them. And there was a meeting of the DCHA board where it appeared that they were going to move to lower the rents, and there was an abrupt change, and somebody came forward and there was a maneuver to instead raise the rent. So the leadership of the DCHA board in its previous incarnation was very committed to maximizing payments to landlords, either as a way of enriching landlords or enticing them to accept voucher tenants. The new board is better. And Keith Pettigrew, who's running the agency, I actually have a lot of confidence in. I think he's trying to make things work better in lots of different ways, including on this on these overpayment issues. And I don't have full transparency into it, but I think that he's grappling with, there is the possibility that HUD would insist that it be paid back for some of the money that's been overpaid. And so what do you do there? So he's in a place where landlords are pressuring him one way. I and folks like yourselves are pressuring him in another way, and HUD is out there pressuring him. I think that that he wants to get it right. We had a hearing where there was a lot of criticism of the new method for establishing rent reasonableness, and he didn't fight it. He actually expressed a decent amount of skepticism for the system that he inherited. The company then sent a long letter, but I think he was willing to do increased scrutiny about what should happen around these payments. And so it's not perfect, but I do think we have better leadership in place. And I actually do have a decent amount I have a lot of confidence in Keith Pettigrew to turn the agency around. The agency has been a giant focus for Chairman White, which is one reason that not a lot of other things have gotten markups, because so much of his time and energy has been devoted to that. On the case management challenges, I think that Laura Zeilinger, who runs DHS, so it's not the DBH folks, but the DBH, you're right, is the contractor for the case managers, but they're often supporting people who are being served by vouchers that are operated through DHS. I think she also is starting to get it and looking for ways to improve services that are provided to people. There have been some ideas about trying to get social workers devoted to a building and have the landlord bear the cost of that as a way of making sure that services are closer to people who need them. I think that's an idea that Chairman White has been exploring with different folks, and we might start seeing that. There have been folks in this community who've come forward with the idea that we need some kind of an NGO in the area that's got a mandate to support folks who are here supported by a voucher, and to welcome them into the community, but also to provide services to them. I think that's a healthy idea. One of the other things that we're not really talking about here is some of the social friction that happens. Many of us were at a meeting at the Forest Hills Park where that was on full display, and it's a challenge for everybody. The last piece, concentrations. I think concentrations are a problem and have raised it in a lot of different places, and always not found any support for the idea of trying to do something affirmatively to limit concentrations. The rejoinder always is that fair housing, you can't discriminate based on source of income, and so you can't do anything. Some people say you shouldn't do anything, other people say you can't do anything. There are folks who are on here who have pointed out that the whole idea of housing first has always been to create mixed income communities, not concentrations of poverty and very high need. And so we stray farther and farther from the conceptual grounding of housing first in the way in which we're executing it here. It's that the concentrations issue is a real thing. And I have not figured out how to win people over to try to do something that could address that concentration issue yet.
Thank you. Amy Shosheim, and we're running against you know, some so if everyone can just sort of try and get your point across, get your question out quickly, please.
Okay. Last week I came back from vacation to find that my air conditioner plugged up and it flooded my living room, dining room, and kitchen. And I wanted somebody to inspect it for mold because as a cancer survivor, I've got sensitive lungs. I had a Borger sent somebody, Connecticut House. First, we didn't think Darrow could be worse, but Borger is right up there with them. And they said that Borger only said that he could sample the air. I said, I want the floor sampled for mold. He said that's cost $500. So I had to fight with Borger for this huge area, and they would only authorize one mold sample from the floor. And so what has happened in these buildings is that instead of bringing everybody up to a certain standard, the property managers just think they can get away with anything. The other thing that I will ask, and I'll be succinct, is that when we have groups like the Ward 3 for affordable housing and the Washington Faith, they say, well, let's have affordable housing in Ward 3, but let it all be in the rent-controlled building. And you're displacing a lot of people. And I think that the Ward 3 homeowners should take on their share, and the luxury apartments should take on their share. It should just be displacing a lot of people who are dependent on a rent-controlled apartment to stay in DC. So I would like you in your conversations with the community to talk about expanding who is paying who is sacrificing. It shouldn't just be those of us who are depending on rent control and where we've seen a mass exodus. But I don't think we should have to fight Borger for something that has a health issue like mold. Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Amy.
go on, and I'm part of the problem, Courtney, because I go on for too long, but but forgive me. So on the mold issue, I saw many of the emails. I guess the last impression that I had was that it was being addressed. So it troubles me that it then it was addressed in this sort of way.
They would not take more than one sample out of my whole living room, dining room.
So we're getting ready to have a meeting with Borger, and it's a thing that I will raise with Borger when I meet with them.
Everything is a fight with Borger, and everything was a fight with Darrow. It's like the Tina Turner song, I don't want to fight anymore.
So I mean, I hear you, and I wish I didn't have to get as many emails from different folks in different buildings about issues like this, and it's our job to fight for you, and we will be and are fighting for you on the burden on the rent stabilized buildings. And that's why I did the legislation that I did about rent reasonableness. And frankly, it could be that a 2-bedroom in a rent stabilized building might, reasonable rent might be $2,000, but in a luxury building next door, it might be $3,500. And if that's what it is in the building next door, then that's what they should pay in the building next door. And the kinds of ideas that I was thinking about was, could you have an incentive for a building that had fewer than 10% folks, subsidized tenants, that you'd pay something extra as a way of distributing the burden, trying to figure out how to get at that so it isn't just the rent stabilized buildings where the landlords can see using this program as a way of getting out from under rent stabilization, which is important to so many of our residents. That's what we're trying to solve with that legislation. And I'll stop with that. Go ahead, Courtney, on to the next person.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And we appreciate your thoroughness and your answering these questions. I don't mean to rush you. Marilyn Lance.
Yeah, I'll make this short,
Marilyn.
Mr. Fruman. I was hoping that, in fact, I thought MPD was always on the agenda for the ANC meeting, and I noticed they're not here this evening.
You know, I talked to Lieutenant Vandermeer. He's coming back from leave, and he'll be here next month.
Okay, that's great. But just a couple comments, and I don't want people to forget or think that this is not important or is gone away. As it relates to, I would say, all of the buildings on the Connecticut Avenue corridor, MPD incidents or incidents that require MPD, drugs, crime are a major, major issue along Connecticut Avenue. And for some reason, we can't get things resolved. People have a tendency to think that perhaps it's not as bad as it is, but every building, and if you ask any of the people who represent the tenant associations, what's happening in their buildings, they can tell you that crime continues to increase. Anything, and I'm not talking about loud music or a party on a Saturday night. I'm talking about drug dealing. I'm talking about domestic violence. I'm talking about child abuse. I'm talking about assaults. I get a report from MPD FOIA every month, and there's an average in most of the buildings, if not all, a minimum of one MPD call a day. 28 to 35 calls a month. And that falls in line with what you were talking about, security. I don't believe in these large buildings owned or managed by Borger, who has a big group of them along Connecticut Avenue, that they can have security being shared throughout these buildings. You got something happening down in the Sedgwick, but then something happens up in the Connecticut house, and you've got one guard or courtesy patrol trying to take care of it. So I don't know if I'm looking for an answer tonight from you, but I think it's something that you have to continue to stress with senior management of the property management buildings. It's a problem, it's getting worse, it's not going away, and they're not doing anything to fix it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is a thing that we absolutely press all the time and have to continue to press. It was interesting in the AOBA report, the looming crisis in the rental market, which is worth reading so you can see how they're seeing it.
I'll put it in the chat.
One of the things that they say is that among their increased costs are security, which they think of as as something that the city should be providing. And so we have this situation where our police force is stretched too thinly already, and then they're spending so much of their time dealing with these issues in the buildings up and down Connecticut Avenue, to the extent that those issues could be avoided by security on site, supports for people who need supports. Like, we all have a stake in that, even if you're not in that building. The fact that the limited officers in the second district spend as much of the time as they do dealing with issues in those buildings means they're not in your name. And if you live someplace else in the second district. So the landlords absolutely have to do their share on this, and we press them all the time and will be going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. And we really do usually have MPD here, and we will continue. And I actually spoke to him today about contributing to this conversation. So my apologies for not having a representative here to speak to that. Thank you, Councilmember Furman, for being here. We really appreciate your thorough explanations of this issue. And we have Elizabeth McPike. Can you be super quick?
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
That do it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to be super quick by not asking a question, but making a comment, which is just that to listen to everything regarding the severe problems in these buildings really is to feel this sense of despair. To hear you say, Councilman, and I know you've been trying to work on this, but to hear you say that how difficult it is to get others on the council interested in any kind of solutions, just, I'm sorry to say, reminds me of kind of the mood in so much of the country where so many people feel that their government is, distant from their concerns. And I mean, to hear people say that they're afraid to testify for security reasons, or to hear you say that some people can not pay rent for up to 3 years, but nothing can be done. And I could, and I'm sure you could give other examples, but to listen to that and then to hear you say that how difficult it is to get council support to address these problems. I kind of wish the council every council member had to rent out their basement to someone and then live under these rules. And
thank you so much. I think we all really share your concern, which is why we continue to put this on our agenda and discuss this issue. Councilman.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that there weren't like a ton of serious issues in this area and that it was easier to move people. This rent delinquency thing and the challenges in the eviction space, and it is serious. And maybe you saw, on there was a bill to extend allowing for self-certification and no criminal background checks in the setting of analyzing voucher applications, and I was the only one who voted against it, and then the mayor vetoed it, and I was the only one who voted to support her override, her veto. And I mean, there are folks on the council who are very, very concerned about evictions and addressing homelessness, and that's coming from a good place. The challenge is that if you're doing that, you really need to be managing it better than the way in which we're managing it. And my job is to try to persuade others to see the seriousness of the issues as people are confronting them day to day. And I'm working on it, and I wish I could say it was really easy, but it isn't. And I also think, just to be candid, that to the extent that I could become perceived as somebody who is just trying to pull up the drawbridge, then I will not get a hearing with anybody else in the city government. So it can't be that. It's got to be that we want to make this program work, but that means doing serious things to make it work. And all I can say is I'm trying. If you're living it day to day, that isn't enough, but it's all I can do.
thank you. I know you're trying.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciated your time. And we hope to have you again soon.
All right. I think Mitch Bear.
Oh, Mitch, do you have a question? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, very quickly, Matt, Wilson Pool.
Oh, yeah. Somebody started with the Wilson Pool. So I spend more time on these issues on Connecticut Avenue, but I spend a lot of time on the Wilson Pool, pushing them to provide clarity. I drop by every couple of weeks to talk with the contractors. I know they won't tell me anything, but I also know that they're going to call their supervisors and say the council member was here again. So where we were supposed to be was the pool was supposed to open by June 20th. That's not going to happen. Where they were 2 weeks ago when I sent out my newsletter, I think it's 2 weeks ago. It's a little bit of a blur. And I toured it with the director of DGS. Is they were about to fill the pool with water. Then the Department of Health was going to come out and test it, and then they were going to move towards opening. And so they began to fill the pool with water, and I've been trying to get them to issue a statement explaining this, and they haven't yet. And I have tried not to get in front of them because I want to work with them, and I do think that they are trying, and I don't want to just be in the business of embarrassing them. Some folks might think they ought to be embarrassed. I think the problem is older than the people who are in place right now. Anyways, they began to fill the pool. There were leaks in some of the pipes, and so they stepped back. They brought in a contractor. They did like for folks who are over the age of 50, they did like a colonoscopy where they had a camera that went
After
in
9.
and looked for where the leaks were. I think they identified. They think they've identified where the leaks were. They're going to do something, a lining. It actually sounds like soapstone, Mitch. They're going to reline some of the pipes tomorrow, I believe. Then they hope that will work, and they'll fill the pool on Wednesday and Thursday, or Thursday and Friday. And then I think they hope that they would be in a position to be testing it shortly after that. Now, I have been down this path with them so many times that I don't want to say that's gonna happen. Who knows if there isn't going to be yet another problem that comes up, but they're on. I like to think they're on the 5-yard line, and that we're going to get there very soon. But I felt like we were on the 5-yard line before. The problem here, it does go to the initial construction of the pool, where at the end of the construction of the pool, they did value engineering. They didn't have enough money, so they looked at what's left to do and what can we cut. And they cut the mechanisms to service the HVAC system and some other things. And that's all coming home to roost. So the HVAC system completely burnt out and had to be completely replaced. And they've done that. And they put in, if you were a swimmer, part of the way that they did climate control was they left the door by Nebraska Avenue open all the time. Like, that's not how you do climate control in a swimming pool. There's also things like there's lots of issues with the original design of the pool, and there's probably going to have to be more that's going to need to be done with the pool. We got to get it open and get people in it, and I think we're close, but I've thought that before.
Thank you very much.
They also have the theater, right? The DGS at Jackson Reed also, which remains not functional.
I mean, they promised me up and down by the money is in the budget for this fiscal year, which ends September 30th, and they say they're going to do it. If they were going to be done, you would have thought that there'd be more activity on it than appears to have been the case. They did fix, so the theater, part of the problem is there were problems with the roof. It would leak. It would damage the equipment in the theater. They would fix the equipment in the theater. It would leak. it would damage the equipment in the theater. One of the things they have done is fix the roof. So now when they have to do things with the equipment in the theater, maybe it won't take that long. They tell me by the end, by September 30th, at MacArthur High School, I toured MacArthur High School a lot, but in one instance with Chairman Mendelson about a month before it was supposed to open. And if you had walked through it, you would have thought, no way on God's green earth this school is going to open. And Chairman Mendelson, who's seen it a lot, said, "Oh no, it'll be fun." And so they can do things fast when they really put their shoulder down. So I want to remain hopeful that by September 30th.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I love the imagery of the colonoscopy. We're going to move on to the colonoscopy of soapstone right now. Thank you very much, Mitch.
Hi.
Gonna turn it to you, Jarrell, Emmanuel,
Well,
and
actually, we've lost a few people from DC.
Oh.
And in the
Sorry.
interest of time, I think Jarrell is still on. So I'm gonna ask 3 questions of DC Water, whoever's still left. We'll get through this pretty quickly because we want to get home tonight, so to speak.
Apologies, everyone. Sorry, Jarrell, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Jarrell.
So Jarrell, I'm summarizing some extent 3 issues from your slides. So just bear with me and answer our questions. What is the schedule for the in-park work that you guys are proposing to do?
As far as the schedule, most of the inside activities are mostly complete. One of the main things that you'll see Empire Landscaping coming in to continue the tree and vegetation maintenance. Right now we currently don't have a date for the installation of the fence above Rock Cascade 1. That's still remaining. The other remaining item inside the park is the installation of Shot 10, which we're all aware of. And that requires the manhole work at 32nd and Albemarle to take place before that shot is installed. And there'll also be a final inspection in the park. And just based on that inspection report, NPS will develop a punch list of items depending on, what their findings are. And then at that time, we could inform you of any additional work that would need to take place.
Okay, thanks, Jarrell. Then let's get now to the work at Albemarle and 32nd Street. The manhole cover that needs to be opened up and the hole moved from 2 feet to 8 feet wide. And I know that Christian is on here too. What is the status of the permit that you're getting from DDOT?
Commissioner, still on? Okay.
This is Spirit. DDOT already issued the traffic control plan. We got that in hand. The only thing we're waiting for is the occupancy permit. DDOT is processing it. That's where we are.
Okay. Now, Peter or Jarrell, we have one other question that came up recently. It looked like there was some work being done on the southwest corner of the intersection of Connecticut and Albemarle, that around 2 manholes there. The question came up, was that work related to the work that's going to be done at that manhole at Albemarle and 32nd Street?
No, that's a regular DC water operation maintenance work. It's not related to Albemarle.
Okay. Chair, I don't have any other questions. In the interest of time, I will defer to you if you want to take any other questions, but I think those are the 3 key questions that people had, and we're going to be covered anyway by the slides.
Do we have any questions from the community based on this remaining work that's occurring right now? Marjorie?
Yes, thank you. So very quickly, do you, would you, we've asked before for the planting and reconstruction plan. Would you kindly, send that to Commissioner Bear so that we can see what the plan is, both for planting and the reconstruction? That would be very helpful to us.
Okay, Marjorie, we've completed our planting work, and the only thing left is for us to do a walkthrough with National Park Service. Everything is done as of today. So the only thing left for planting and the park for the trail is for National Park Service to walk through and tell us what else do they, what do they see that the contractor need to address. So everything is done inside the park. As
Is it
far as
possible?
planting is concerned.
I see. Is it possible to get a plan for the planting plan?
We can give it to I think we already gave it before, but yeah, we can give it to Commissioner Beer. Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you. And some of the trees are already dead or dying that have been planted. So what is the process? What is your process for going through and
Okay, Marjorie, this is the plan. Once we finish, since we finish our planting, as it by today, we're gonna, according to the permit that we got from National Park Service, we need to give it 30 days for Empire to come every day and water it. So after 30 days, we will work it with National Park Service, every tree that was planted. And they will point out to us which one need to be replaced. Now, mind you now that after that walkthrough, DC Water will hire a contractor for the next 2 years to guarantee to maintain those trees for another 2 years. Now, after 2 years, DC Water is giving National Park Service another $500,000 to guarantee for the next 3 years to make sure that they maintain it, to make sure that all the trees planted survive. So DC Water has already put in place with National Park Service 5 years of continuous maintenance of those trees. So DC Water, as far as we're concerned, we have no issue that those trees will survive. So we've invested a lot of money on those trees that is planted. We guarantee with all this maintenance contract that we put in place, the first 2 years, we are actually paying Empire to maintain it. Then after 2 years, National Park Service is hiring a third party to maintain it for another 3 years. So that's the plan.
Okay, thank you, Peter, very much.
Okay.
Thanks for your patience, waiting till this late at night. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, David Weinberg, quickly,
Yeah,
please.
just briefly, Peter, it really was, if I understood it correctly, wonderful news to hear that everything is done. If everything is done, when will the park be open for the public to come in and enjoy?
Yeah, the plan right now, because of the Albemarle and 32nd Street walk, we still got a segment about 322 feet that we need to line as soon as we get the permit from DDOT. So the plan now is we're working with National Park Service to open the south end of the park, which is Broad Branch, and 29th Street. But before we do, those trees and vegetation that is planted need time to grow. So we are working with NPS and Councilman Freeman's office to see how we can protect those trees to make sure that they grow. The plan is maybe by end of August to do what we call a partial opening, to open the south end of the park, but not the north end where we got the mile walk. So that's the plan. We will share with the commissioners once we finish the plan. We're looking at maybe by end of August to at least open half of the park, so that at least to give the trees, to give them a chance to grow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Mitchell? Mitch?
Yeah. Oh, I don't have anything. I don't have any other
Okay,
questions.
so
I'm
is
sorry.
is that sufficient?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everything was covered. Thank you so much. Thanks, DC Water. Apologies for the late meeting tonight. Since Juanita covered an update on the archives, I'm going to pass through that and get to the BZA permit. Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Tez.
Good evening.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay, but thank you so much for being here. You can begin presenting when you're ready, sir.
Good evening. Let me share my screen here if that's okay. Is that coming across?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening. My name is Will Tays. I am a managing principal at Tays Warren Architects, and I'm here this evening to make a brief presentation on an upcoming Public Space Committee project at 4501 29th Street. The associated case is 447479, and we are scheduled to appear before the committee in July. And we had reached out to the ANC commissioner, who graciously responded and helped facilitate this meeting tonight. I'll go through this fairly briefly. It's a single family home that's at the corner of 29th and Albemarle. Oops. All right, this should be an aerial photograph that shows the location of the home in relation to some of the surrounding properties. It's on a corner lot. The current property has a building restriction line along 29th Street. That's 10 feet back from the property line, and under the DDOT regulations, any work that happens in between the building restriction line and the property line are subject to public space review. And in this case, some of the features that we're proposing require an appearance before the Public Space Committee. This is an image standing at the corner of 29th and Albemarle looking to the northeast that shows the heavily wooded area on the south side of the property. I think some folks here may be familiar with that stretch of overgrown area on the south side of the property. Of note is the fact that there is a sidewalk on the south side of the property, but there is not a sidewalk to the north. One of the aspects of the project is to reintroduce, or introduce, I should say, a sidewalk in front of the home. And so that sidewalk would continue north along Albemarle. This is a view of the existing curb cut at the property, as well as a curb cut of the adjacent property owner. Again, this really highlights that area of the neighborhood that doesn't have a sidewalk. We're proposing to extend the sidewalk up from the corner, at least until the property line here, which is fairly close to the telephone pole that you're seeing here in the image. And then this is just the view of the house. So right now there's really just a front lawn and then the house itself. So we're proposing to renovate the house, really not expand it very much, just reconfigure some dormers, but that's work that's interior to the site. What we are doing, and this is a landscape plan that we've developed, is to create a security fence around the perimeter of the house, and a portion of that security fence will be in public space or within the boundary of between the property line and the setback, or the building restriction line rather. And then additionally, we intend to reconfigure the curb cut. The goal here is to create a little bit more open space in front of the yard and just really provide that boundary condition around the perimeter of the property. So it's not so much a BZA, well, there's no BZA request. It's a simple public space matter, and the issues that are driving us to the committee are the curb cut, as well as the security fence that's located within the space between the building restriction line and the property line.
Can I ask a question, Terry?
Yes.
Because you have so much space and so much buffer there, why do you need to put need to put the security fence in public space?
I think we're trying to provide as much distance from the public right of way to the home as we can. So it's not technically going in public space as much as it is going by
Public right of way is the public space, right?
Right.
Owned by DDOT.
Right, so it's not owned by DDOT. This is that gray area between a building restriction line.
Oh, between it. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
so we're not. Got it. Sorry.
Thank you. I think you said that. I just didn't quite process it.
Yeah, so there is, and I can zoom in a little bit. There is that the property line, that's where the intended fence will go, and then there's that building restriction line. And so DDOT permits certain things to happen in there, but they, from DDOT's perspective, they treat that as the public right of way, even though it's technically private property.
Okay, so it's that additional buffer space. I'm sorry, I
Correct.
misunderstood that.
No,
It's
that's correct.
late.
Certainly.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you so much. And I have no further questions.
Looked like there was a question. Somebody had raised their hand.
Oh, Commissioner David.
Yep. Just cool question. Is there any feedback from the community at all regarding this?
Not to our knowledge, we've reached out to the neighbors, haven't heard anything back from them. That would be the adjacent neighbors that the property touches, but we haven't made any kind of larger community outreach.
Okay. And it touches public space. Would that interfere at all with the privateness of it? Does that make sense?
Could you?
I mean, there's not a lot of traffic there, I'm guessing, like foot traffic.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's a sidewalk on the south side, and part of the proposal is we would add sidewalk on behalf of DDOT, so that people could walk up on 29th Street on the east side.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be a standard size sidewalk that you're adding? And in some places it's like a, abbreviated.
Yeah, no, we would be following the DDOT guidelines for the required width, and then we'd also be, and I think actually the DDOT reviewer had the urban forestry folks had requested a 4-foot tree box as well. So it would be a 4-foot tree box, and then I think 3 or 4 foot sidewalk. So whatever the standard DDOT requirement is.
Thank you. I think Paul Harrison had a hand raised.
Oh, you beat me to the question, Madam Chair, so all good.
Streets and Sidewalks Committee working together. Thank you. Commissioner Hewitt.
You're welcome.
Are you, Commissioner Hewitt, are you requesting a vote on this?
Oh, pardon me. Yes, sorry, it's a little late. Yes, this is, pardon me, I'm lacking the words at the moment, if you don't mind.
Do you want to move that we vote on the public space application case 447479?
Yes, Madam Chair, I echo what you've just said. And I would second it.
Okay, all in favor of granting the public space application, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed or abstain? So the public space application is granted. Thank you very much for sticking with us and for making the presentation. And I would add, thank you for adding a sidewalk.
Thank you very much for your time.
Very neighborly of you. Thank you. Okay. Treasurer's report, Commissioner Bear.
Okay, I have 75 seconds. I'm going to go real fast. I need a motion to approve the QFRs for first quarter and second quarter of 2024.
I motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, second, we need to have the minutes reflect that Terry Hewitt has been the secretary since last summer. And I just want that in the minutes because it seems that that hasn't been stressed enough for the ANC office. And so I'll repeat that Terry Hewitt has been secretary for the last period of time since we had a resignation last year.
Okay, let the minutes reflect the officer lineup correctly.
Okay, and the last thing is good news. We've been told by the ANC office that the penalties and even the contributions that we've made to the parent, the PFL has been
Abated.
has been not only abated, but we don't have to give any more contribution to it. And parental family leave, excuse me, that we don't have to pay it anymore, and we can ask for rebate on 3 years worth of what we've paid already. We've been paying it at when we didn't need to. So I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for bearing in for the longer meeting. I hope that people feel that it was worth it to hear so thoroughly from Councilmember Fruman, and will forgive me for not cutting anyone off on that one. I didn't feel like I could do that. So anyway, thank you so much. I move that we adjourn the meeting at 9:31 p.m.
Second.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. I appreciate everyone's contributions to the meeting.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Night.
Welcome, Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you. No worries.